Hey everybody, this is Jim at SP500chart.com. It is Sunday evening, about 6:45, and we're going to take a look at what happened last week in the S&P. It was a shortened week due to Thanksgiving and a half day of trading on Friday. But we're going to take a look, and before we do so, I need to remind you that the website and the video are for educational purposes only. Nothing stated at the site or in the video is intended to be used as investment advice. I control lines on charts, but you have to draw your own conclusions from your own research, and you need to make investment decisions that are suitable for your personal financial situation, and I'll add to that, also suitable for your tolerance for risk. I am not a licensed financial professional. No matter how smart you might think I sound, it's all just stuff I've figured out on my own or through my reading. Didn't go to school for it. So I really don't have any piece of paper that tells me I have any accreditation whatsoever in this field, but I am a guy who likes to draw lines on charts, so let's do just that. Okay, the first thing I want to tell you before we get into this at all, just to give you a heads up, I am traveling again for the week of November 26th, so the videos will be done a little later in the evening than what is typical. This is probably my last trip for a while, and it's going to be Monday through Thursday. Look for videos between 9 and 10 Eastern time. It could be as late as 10:30. I really apologize for this, but you know, I wish I could make a complete and total living from doing these charts, but I can't quite do that. Okay, so I've got my other vocation that I have to depend upon for the lion's share of my income, and with that in mind, that's what I'm doing this week. It just so happens I am shooting a job down in Florida, and the good news is it is the East Coast, so I'm there in the what is for most of you the worst case scenario would be if you're on the East Coast. Those of you on the West Coast, the Mountain and Central Time Zone, of course, you make an adjustment for your time zone. So anyway, looking at the S&P 500, it sure looks like this little guy's working like an inverted head and shoulders. What that means is that getting out of this steeply descending orange channel looks to have been the signal that the market was ready to mount at least a short-term bounce. Now, if we look at things on a weekly basis, we came into the week, we traded for 3.5 days. I made mention that there was a chance that if we get follow-through on Monday, that and I said this on the last weekly update, weekly review, that if we had follow-through on Monday, then I would look for this to be at least a short-term bounce to this level right around 1388, 1390. And if we got there, look for the possibility of a right shoulder, and this being an inverted head and shoulders pattern. And boy howdy, as some in the South might have said 50 years ago, that's sure what it looks like right now. In addition to having gotten over this neckline, we have also now gotten over this descending trend line that was defined by the highs of the week of the 15th, the highs of the week of the 5th, and we are now over that. But we are still coming up on an area that I think should present some difficulty, and that's going to be up here in the low 1430s. That is now the target, because we measure the depth of the head from the neckline of our inverted head and shoulders, and we move that measurement to the point of breakout, and we end up now with a minimum upside target that just, quote, coincidentally lines up with where we would expect a downturn. So, guys, this is really interesting what's going on. Um, Really, that's about all I can tell you. This, again, this pretty solid break of this bottom descending support line. We've talked about it many times. When a line that is descending support breaks, you cannot count on that line putting up much of a fight if the market returns to that line. In other words, it's pretty easy for a broken descending support line to be fairly porous if the market comes back and attacks that line. And that's exactly what happened. The market had no difficulty getting back into this channel, stayed right about the middle of it for the greater part of the shortened week, and then late on Friday rallied over this resistance line to a fairly decent degree. Still not a technically super significant amount, probably about 0.4%. So going into this week, I would look for a continuation of this move to eventually take hold, and for us to get up to that 1435, 1436 level that would be the same levels that we were at on a number of occasions. Come on, I think I have to go to the 30-minute chart. See this line right here? We had 1, 2, 3 attempts to get over that line, and it could not do it. Now we have yet to have another one, but I would expect some resistance to be met in the mid-1430s. Now, let's look ahead. To begin with, our head and shoulders top just barely qualified as having met the minimum target. It actually missed it by a tiny amount. But let's look ahead. Take off the bearish glasses just for a second and see this triple top neckline from our head and shoulders top. You see, here's our triple top that kind of was the crown on the head. Look at that now. I would expect us to mount an attack on that. What would happen, let's say, if we came up to this line, sold back down, came up to it again, maybe bounced around? Do you see what I'm looking at now? I'm looking at the possibility of an even larger inverted head and shoulders that could be forming before our very eyes. And if that is the case, since this neckline is almost horizontal, we can pretty much calculate what our target would be of this pattern if it breaks out and if we're able to overcome some additional overhead resistance. But you can see that you can see how this looks like it may be an inverted pattern here. And this whole thing right here, we may look back at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5 week descent right here as a bull flag. I'm just saying, it will all depend upon what happens in relation to this right here and whether this pattern were to complete on out and then break out over this line. Because if it can do that, then we are looking at a target for a new multi-year high of about 1528. Don't say it can't happen. It can happen. Okay? Despite the fact that this has a very bearish feel to it, the fact that it has a bearish feel sort of is a little bit of, to my mindset, a little bit of a contrarian indicator. The markets usually don't do what people expect them to do. And since we've had this break of this upward channel, and now we've gone down a bit, we have not gotten down to that 1320 level. I still hope we can. But if we don't and we power on up and start taking out some of these, particularly this line right here, that'll be around 1436 or so, if that can happen and we form a right shoulder, you have to just call it for what it looks to be. And that would look to be an inverted head and shoulders consolidation pattern. And we've seen these before in the S&P. So guys, I just think going into the next couple of weeks, that needs to be on the radar as a possibility. It's not yet a prediction, but it is a possibility. So it's looking that like this little inverted pattern here should be taking the market back to the 1430s. And once resistance is likely met there, let's see if it continues a series of attacks on that line that eventually takes it out, setting up a move for roughly 1430. And interestingly enough, that's a line that we've been looking at for a while that could use a back test. So I think that's about it for right now. Last week was no huge surprise, a little bit of a shock on the gap up on Monday, but really no big surprise that the S&P was able to get back into this channel, and now it looks like it has a willingness to break out of it and to mount at least a decent short-term rally to the 1430s. And just as a reminder again, look for the videos on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this upcoming week, November 26th, the week of November 26th. Look for those videos to be a little bit later into the evening. I'm going to do everything I can to have them posted and uploaded by 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't know what kind of internet connection I'm going to have. Sometimes they're pretty fast. Sometimes they're pretty slow. So depending upon that, it might alter how quickly I speak or how much detail I decide to go into. So look, guys, thanks for watching the video, and take care. And I hope all of you do well in the markets this upcoming week.